Alright, resuming our new video. Who cares? Same difference. Part 2, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Establishment. You can't even grasp points. It takes you years to slightly move on an issue. You're just trigger happy. You're an emotional wreck.
Whatever. So all this rhetoric means nothing, right? So I'm posting the argument more and more explicitly. That is, I'm actually putting it in text. You're not even rationally relating to the text at all, like I demonstrated with the radar experiment, and how the radar experiment is not consistent in any way whatsoever with the traditional two-slit light experiment, in the sense that all of a sudden now the interference is happening in different places through a different mechanism, and Heisenberg and Huygens are no longer relevant, yet somehow we have these waves created that interfere with each other in the same manner, and yet they don't do it in any other manner, where if I take two flashlights I can't make the waves interfere with each other no matter how hard I try, okay, without some kind of Heisenberg blinker to stimulate the production of the mega wavy thingies, the mini wavies.
The pause button, rather than listening, just reacting to words.
Just bullshit crap as accusations, just meaningless mush. You won't prove one tiny bit of that with one single quote from me, ever. So you're just a stinking liar. I mean, you're the one with these desperate evasions and desperate sits there and justifications. You point out how the lensing doesn't make any sense, and you draw this just completely incomprehensible mush. And in the middle of it, you'll say, "Oh yeah, well maybe you're right."
I just did science, you know. But thank you for validating my essential criticism. That
yes, thank you for validating that it is pretty much a conspiracy, right? Because what comes out of the woodwork when you attack the king and say the emperor's not wearing clothes? You demonstrate how his clothes are in rubbish, you know, lying on the floor. And you're sitting there making these irrational arguments in defense. And so you're basically just showing how this is just some sort of meme engine, okay, that just has to do with celebrity, and you love your celebrities, your little science celebrities, and has nothing to do with the actual facts and the actual integrity of the thing called the standard model or conventional thinking or any of that stuff. You don't care how many flaws and lies that are built on, how much fake promotion, how many exaggerated claims. Quantum mechanics is the most tested theory in the history of the universe, blah, blah, blah. Where's the evidence for any of that shit? It didn't even pass my tests. The simple test. Does the math have the slit within it? No. Does the image match the article? No. Is the margin of error rationally within some scope of having a meaningful experiment? No. The editing experiment? Oh, is it fair and unbiased? No, the guy who did it is the most biased Einstein devotee possible. He claims Einstein's right. Oh, there's no reason to be suspicious. That's the way science should be done. Your brother and your sister and your mother should be testing you. That's the way it should be done. Fuck you.
a large part of the criticism that he doesn't put anything forward. So
yeah, nothing forward. Okay, so I have the whole website detailing the fucking, most of the concepts, the basic concepts of the theory, demonstrating that it explains time dilation, explains for the first time in any coherent way why things are attracted and repelled, what the actual mechanism is, how the forces actually complete the task. It does that for inertia and velocity. And it does it for the nuclear forces. Explain why protons and electrons behave the way they fucking goddamn do. And he says it's nothing. Why? Because he's a liar. Shit. A preposterous liar.
And since there's this evolution in the story of his credentials,
There's no evolution. I never told any other story. My life has always been the same life, so this is just more lies. Lie some more. Why don't you find the contradiction in the story, liar? God, you're just such a fucking liar.
It does beg a question. Yeah? People like to... people understand and not...
No, the question begged is, so you people are so incredibly deceptive and weaselly and dishonest that even when somebody catches somebody on perpetual lies and says, will you produce one single evidence, one single quote to back up any of this nonsense that you're puking? And then you assholes in the audience will still say, no, don't harm the guy who's in love with the king, because I'm in love with the guy who's in love with the king. I mean, you're just all such pieces of shit. You all have just not, you don't give one fucking shit about the goddamn truth, do you fuckers? Ugh, it's disgusting.
They may not be taken seriously. They may be prejudiced against if they're not part of the establishment, don't have these qualifications. But when you see these holes...
Again, what holes? Again, so when you see these holes, the only holes been pointed out with regularity and consistency are the holes I'm pointing out in this bullshit standard bullshit model. And you assholes haven't poked hole fucking one in anything I've argued in defense of my theory. Any holes that, yes, I wasn't quite apt at explaining, okay, why you're seeing something that isn't there.
This unnatural development. Yes, I'm a critical thinker with a master's in, and then, well, normally achieves the highest qualification in a field, and that's...
He's qualified to call himself a critical thinker because he points out the first rule of critical thinking, which is don't just take it on word. Don't take my word. He says those exact words to you, you dumb buffoon. How can you justify this critique? He says those exact words to you. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to them. Look at it for yourself. That's what he says. That's what a critical thinker has to do. A critical thinker has to take the responsibility of actually having enough competence to judge for themselves. You can't be a critical thinker if you don't want to go to the trouble to learn anything to qualify yourself to say, yes, I can see a cut corner when somebody's cutting a corner. I can see the tire track on the sidewalk, and I say, I can understand that the tire track shouldn't be on the sidewalk. I can understand that much about this physics crap, okay, that you actually have to drive on the fucking roads of your own consistency. Once you build a highway, you have to stay on the fucking goddamn road. All right, and where is that stupid radar experiment staying on the road, okay, of the premises built into wave mechanics of the two-slit experiment? Why don't you explain how it's the same fucking road? Because it isn't. There is no fucking consistency. Why don't you explain the consistency of fucking coming up with a goddamn theory that you can convert goddamn matter into goddamn bent space? Why don't you show where the consistency is? Where's the consistency? Where is it staying on the fucking road?
That's it. That's the only thing you proffer. There's no need to proffer. To get a master's in physics, to get a PhD in physics, it's assumed you could have got a mathematics degree, but you've got a science degree to end up with a PhD or master's in physics.
But yeah, it really is just a math degree, and that's part of the problem with physics. And he's going to make another video. He's got another video after this one, sitting there probably, explaining how math is physics, when no, physics is Rube Goldberg, okay? And frankly, the math isn't going to make you understand why everything happens the way it happens. Math doesn't explain, nothing illustrates gravity better than bending a piece of fabric, right? That's why they use it, all right? It's not mathematically pure. It's not explicitly accurate, but the theme is explained in milliseconds, while the formula could take 5 years to understand. 5 years. You won't even understand it. You'll just be obedient to it. You won't understand conceptually what you're even doing when you're squaring this and square rooting that and cosine this, and you understand why you're doing that or what exactly that number's going to do in the equation. You won't understand anything about the fucking mechanics of the fucking thing itself through that process. And if that is called your definition of physics, then I think you're goddamn stupid. If you don't understand that physics needs both, it needs conceptual engineering, and it needs to understand that there's formulas established by rules, and so the rules are in the math. You dumbass.
This is the normal path. So and as a critical thinker, you're going to be skeptical of these things and skeptical of a person's credibility. It's just one feature of the realm of critical thinking.
And again, this has nothing to do with this opportunity. This thing, you don't have to worry if somebody throws a bad idea into this pool. because your pool of your collective is going to be able to find it, say that's a garbage, that's nonsense, and throw it out. But they can hear it. They can first judge it. There's no reason in throwing out because there's no urgency here. There's no building on fire, okay, and there are no passengers to be horribly killed. So there's nothing about this circumstance that justifies cutting the corner of having a full conversation and a full debate about what the model's going to look like. There's nothing whatsoever preventing that except the hubris and arrogance and obnoxious egos of these assholes that you're defending.
Well, yeah. With the exception of life, which doesn't have a purpose, everything with a...
Again, another fucking idiotic statement in the context of, well, yeah, once it exists, it functions, and that function of feeling good and feeling bad is obviously fundamentally purposeful by its intrinsic nature. But this is another thing this idiot can't figure out. He can't figure out there's something intrinsically good and bad about feeling good and feeling bad. He doesn't think torture's really bad, by the way. He thinks if he made a universe full of things tortured, it would be just as valuable and just as good as one full of things just being happy. He thinks there's no real value that exists because he doesn't think value is something the universe actually created by creating sentient organisms. Because he's too fucking stupid.
A critical purpose, or a purpose which we imbue upon it. It's our purpose and it matters to us.
Again, a silly argument, right? Mattering to me doesn't change whether that guy's getting tortured or not. The torture's real, it's happening in this universe, and me acknowledging it is completely superfluous. It's completely meaningless to the function that's taking place. And he's too stupid to figure that out. He really thinks, I have to endow it with function. I have to say, that's a bad thing happening. It's not a bad thing till I show up and declare, that's a bad thing. He's that fucking stupid.
All these things need qualified drivers.
So again, qualified by what? By degrees from institutions that teach it one certain way. Not qualified by the actual argument you present, the actual evidence you present, the actual engineered concept, the actual explanation, the actual, here, this is how I put the puzzle pieces together, and look, it works. Look, I found a shorter way to get through the maze. A shorter line. It's just a fact. See, look, this line is much shorter. See? Now, you engineers didn't come up with that. You professional, qualified, degreed people seem to couldn't draw that fucking line. If I demonstrate, Lythloday, if I demonstrate that the two-slit experiment and the single-slit experiment is really just duplicating images, okay? Something so easy, so simple, so obvious almost in a sense. It's going to be in hindsight, everybody's going to say, oh, fuck, that's so fucking obvious. Right? Well, are you going to have some response to that? Like, well, yes, I can see how, they talked about this fucking experiment for 100 fucking years, like the fucking universe changed, right? Like something profound and meaningful had happened, and here the answer was just fucking simple. And it was so obvious because it was even in Young's fucking experiment. I mean, little round suns duplicated, little round circles for the holes. He did the two-hole experiment. You fucking idiots. Shit.
Did I coin that metaphor? Did somebody else?
Yeah, about things that matter. Yes, I used the metaphor of passengers in a bus about scenarios that were completely applicable to people are in danger, their welfare is at stake. Again, why don't you point out whose welfare is at stake in the conversation about what the standard model should look like and whether the standard model should now include conversion of matter into bent space and whether the standard model should include, producing waves, Huygens' some kind of magical way that somehow radar waves know how to interfere with each other without having to first go through a slit or be obstructed in any way, that somehow they just know that they're supposed to Huygens. Magically, they know that. So why don't you do, like I say, why don't you do the single radaton, the single photon radar experiment, and show me how, yeah, see, it still happens. Bullshit. This whole fucking thing is such fucking bullshit. And this, you know, like I said, you're proving the point. I started off being really careful not to imply that, okay, yeah, this is a conspiracy of ignorance. These people are all in a cabal of bullshit. And you're just demonstrating why, yes, I was wrong not to believe that you're all lying scum who are just engineering your own position here. Just playing a fucking game. Fuck the truth. Fuck the evidence. Fuck the facts. Okay, this is just about winners and losers, and I'm going to make sure you're a loser because I'm sucking the dick of the winners. Because they're my kind of people. Fat and bald. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Right. Might as well do the math thing. Get it over with. I don't want to do... I mean, I shouldn't respond to this fucking douche. This ignorant, fat piece of shit.
I thought I'd make a little add-on, or I realised I missed the part that I wanted to address.
Oh, super.
Mathematics is the language of science.
Okay, so where in Darwin's theory of evolution is mathematics? Where in most, let's say, even most chemistry, you know, the model manipulation, yes, there's math, but we're really talking about spatial relationships. And, you know, the visuals are so much more powerful. I mean, building the molecules and playing with them. You know, computers do that now, but whatever. But again, so like I said, where in evolution is mathematics necessary? How is it critical to understanding the theory?
The reason is science works on the basis, the belief that it's worthwhile, that induction works, that we have cause and an effect.
Induction works. So it's saying it's talking about a kind of reasoning. So like it somehow matters. No, the point is you put facts together. Facts point to another fact. Two facts add up and point to a fact. And the truth is you have to add the facts right. And that is recognizing their consequences. That means when you have a fact like there's lensing, gravity moves light. Well, then you have to apply that rule consistently when you look at the universe. And then you have to say, well, why it should move it there, it should move it there, it should move it there. Why aren't there any of these kind of flares of light? Because that should be the thing that's caused by probability, by the laws of averages, by a kind of mathematics, probability. Those laws say it should be there. Why isn't it there? A miracle?
This is best characterized by that the world is intelligible. It is rational. It can be made sense of. Now,
but not by people, not by people with a lying scum agenda. It can't, and that's what you're revealing. You're revealing you're obnoxious to the truth, and you will go to you will bend over so far backwards in terms of destroying reason to rationalize and excuse the failures of your emperors.
Describe something, if you're describing it completely concrete and rationally, then and then it will have a predictive power as well as just merely.
So again, more of this predictive crap in a where we're now at 2017, where most reasonable people would agree that yes, most of that predicting thing is out the window, okay? Because most of the shit that's going to happen, we've already observed it happening, 99.99%. There's only a tiny bit of function out there that still remains invisible to us. And unless you're some kind of silly religious kook, you understand that that's the goddamn truth. And again, the predictive power based on what? Claims about an imaginary world that's never been tested. How did LIGO, what did LIGO predicted the existence of binary black holes and then predicted that they can convert matter into bent space, and they proved it by what? Contriving an experiment to come up with, you know, some sort of, you know, reverse engineer a proof. So it's like people saying that lensing demonstrates the existence or proves the existence of dark matter because it doesn't fit the math. So obviously dark matter must exist because if the math can't be broken, so there must be something real in the world that made the math break. because the math can't be wrong. Isn't that what's taken place, obviously?
Story up to fit circumstance. That is, it has a time evolution predictiveness. Anyhow, the shorthand for any rational explanation is mathematics. It's the abstraction.
Again, so to call it shorthand and to call it abstraction in the same sentence, in my opinion, that's just that you don't understand vocabulary. And he says no vocabulary. I mean, shorthand as an abstraction is seldom going to be a shorter way to understanding. Shorthand, for example, isn't really shorthand, you know, in the sense that it isn't easier, it's harder to do language through literal shorthand, you know, the symbol, changing the language. That's why people don't do it, is because it's not easier, it's harder.
Sometimes we come up with the abstraction, and yet we don't have any good pictures to go along with it. But what we can never do is have the best great pictures and explanation and it not be mathematical.
Again, Darwin's theory of evolution doesn't need any math to be completely cognizable conceptually, to be completely understandable. You don't need any mathematics to understand it. And it doesn't have to follow any explicit hard rules. Okay, the only rules are is that, yes, magic won't happen. But where the tree branch branches, you know, could be any number of huge probabilities and possibilities. The possibilities are unlimited. So there can't be any math, explicit math, because there's no explicit variables. Dumbass.
Picture under the flying under the banner of rationality means it's accessible to reason, and the shorthand language for reason and rationality, that is consistency. That is it's no gaps in it. It's not going to self-refute. It's not going to end up with two conflicting predictions about the same situation, etc., etc.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've pointed out does happen. The absence of the two slits in the two-slit math. The fact that the radar experiment somehow is creating interference in a manner that no other force has ever been compelled to do so without some other instrumentality to force that interference.
But the written language is necessarily, by definition, mathematics. That's why there's no...
Again, by definition by who again? They're just relationships. It's a formalized relationship. That's all it is, 2 to 1. It's just proportions. Different ways of establishing a proportional relationship between, say, velocity and mass, or force, or some other thing. And that's all they are. And you're turning it into some sort of magical thing that can do magical things, and it can't. It doesn't do anything magical. It just sits there and puts things into an order, a formula. I mean, a method of understanding the transition from the starting point to the end point that you're evaluating. And it gives you a way to quantize that transition. But that's not the whole game. It's not even close. And as I've pointed out, it can't be anywhere near close when it's fundamentally flawed and the people won't admit the errors in it and the lack of precision and the fact that it can't be the right answer.
History about why the world's mathematical. It's just a basic translation. So long as the world is intelligible, it is, by extension, mathematical.
And so that's a statement made. What evidence? Again, it just depends on what structural thing. Again, the subject of physics is obviously going to be mathematical because of the fact that the bits involved have such limited range in terms of what they can do. Where other elements of science, like chemistry or evolution, biological sciences, the variables of what's possible are so wide that you can't formalize it.
And another add-on point. Yeah, I mean, to test, you have to be able to predict. Now, of course, you could predict in words, but like I said, ultimately you have variables, abstractions of time, variable, and the outcomes then become a...
Yeah, just understand that predictions don't mean anything. Getting the right answer for the wrong reason is a real thing that happens in the real world all the fucking time. So again, that idea that, oh, you got the right answer, that means that the formula must be correct. No. I mean, a clock is right twice, a broken clock is right twice a day, blah, 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 blah. I mean, that doesn't mean anything in terms of saying that's all you need. And it is, in my opinion, demonstrated in things like the two-slit experiment.
Describable as a function of time, and where, you know, the problem of physics, to a large degree, is about time evolution of the state of the system.
No, it's understanding what the system is made out of. So if you don't understand the ingredients, you obviously can't understand the baking process and the end result. So, and that's the argument being made by most of these people, is that they've got this basic understanding way wrong. This wavy, bent, medium bullshit is just what it seems like. Bullshit, made up crap that doesn't have anything to do with fact number one.
If one person can accurately tell you various properties through the time evolution, through his formulas, and the best you can do is tell a story, we like the guy who has the predictive element also.
Well, again, anybody who understands how it's going to work is going to be able to predict it. So once I have great knowledge in my Rube Goldberg experiment of bowling balls knocking over bowling pins, I can certainly convert that to pool balls knocking over dominoes, and I can certainly convert that into other things that are similarly describable as without using any math, but just using the basic model of function. It has the same elements, and you can compare it because the elements are the same. Just as you can compare the predator-prey relationship throughout all kinds of different locations on planet Earth, developing exactly the same sort of organisms, the same sort of, you know, kangaroo versus deers, whatever, hopping rabbits versus, you know, whatever, jumping rats.
And that was all.
Yeah, bullshit. So he does all this, you know, he's got to drink, he's got to do all these things in a fucking 5-minute video. You ought to take care of that business ahead of time, buddy.
As to general dissident scientists, they're just so replete with errors.
Well, fine. Then just that's the way you defeat them. Not by this prejudgment. Not by saying they all look like Nick. You know, not by fucking name calling and exclusion. You just make the argument that their argument sucks. Here's all the holes and flaws in it. There, you win that way. But this bigotry, it just makes you sound like a stupid fuck. This prejudging, this, I don't even have to listen to their argument. And I certainly don't have to defeat it with anything.
A photographic guy, yeah? Using bullshit words wrongly. You got your men using words wrongly. Conflation of concepts.
Yeah, so more accusations with no evidence. Just make accusations, no evidence. Accusations, no evidence. Typical Lythloday injustice. Just a lying shyster.
Time, not understanding concepts when they're put to him. Dissident science the other day.
Yeah, well, you're the one who don't understand. Galaxy this way, galaxy this way, galaxy this way, galaxy this way. You don't seem to understand. Dumbass.
Making errors. I mean, I've not heard a lot of errors, but the point is I'm sure if I watched him enough, I'd spot the same errors where he's talking about helium only having one electron, and I corrected him saying he's have two. He was most. I did poke at him and call him a dumbass. I was playing with him, let's say. It was
whatever all that bullshit is. Again, more minutia. So you don't even come close to making an argument that has something to do with the concept being expressed. Instead, you're making stupid arguments. Well, your hand isn't exactly the same as a galaxy on edge. Doesn't need to be. to explain the difference between this and this. Fuckhead.
It wasn't. I just see how he reacted, and he was most gracious in his reaction. I do like the character of the man. I do like the man, but yeah, there's a lot to be left wanting in these dissident scientists.
There's a ton wanting in these silly, pointless cranks in defense of the status quo, in defense of evasions and irresponsibility. And that's all this asshole is about. Again, trying to make life into some sort of, oh, it's only about how you personally feel. Thems are irrelevant because you don't feel what the thems feel, so how could that possibly mean anything? That kind of logic is what runs this fucking kook. This fucking simpleton. And I do mean ton of ass. Fat ass. Small brain. You know, quantum erasure of a dick. And no balls at all.